Thanks. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting. And 4:01 p.m. We'll go ahead and start. First on the agenda was the approval of the agenda.
I second that.
Okay, there's one addition there to add Chambers Street. Discussion there, the speeding. Ken, you're second that, Ken?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any declarations of conflicts? No. We have delegations tonight, so we'll go ahead with that. The WSP, the active transportation.
Through the chair, may I speak?
Yes, please.
Before we get going, I'd like to just take everybody's attention to Paul McMunn. He is our new Director of Public Works, and he's joining us today and getting familiar with our Active Transportation Committee and also an introduction to our ATP plan. So welcome, Paul. And Kimberly, if you would like to commence your presentation, that would be awesome. I don't know if Bryce is going to do the same thing as before and let you guys have the screen so that you can provide your presentation.
You know, if you see it. All good? Okay. Thank you very much. Chair Shirley, thank you for having us and giving us the time to give the presentation to you and to collect some information. We did do the presentation this afternoon with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I just wanted to check in because it did go a little bit long. So Chair, if you had a time, I will try to keep to. Let me know. I don't know how many other things you have on your agenda. That's why if we're after us, I don't want to make you go too long.
Okay. Vanessa, did you have a time limit?
I think if you were to leave us 20 minutes, so if we can go and finish by 20 to 5, that would be great.
Okay. No problem. All right, so what we wanted to do is we want to give you a bit of an overview on what we're up to with the Active Transportation Plan. And we do have a piece that's a little more interactive where we're looking for some comments. What we're doing with the Accessibility Advisory Committee is circulating the maps that we'll be talking about to them. So if anything comes up, because obviously we understand that throwing up some maps in front of you right now and asking for all your comments isn't necessarily fair. So we'll circulate them around. And if you have any additional comments that you want to send to us by the end of next week, that would be great. So essentially, so just to give you a bit of an overview of what the purpose of the study is, it's a long-term active transportation strategy. So it's a planning document. And what it does is it gets updated every 5 to 10 years typically, and it provides the framework and the blueprint for the town in how they're going to develop active transportation within the community. And so there's a few pieces that it's a living document. It doesn't mean that everything is fixed. Something might change, but what it does is it gives staff and council a direction and a plan in place so that they can start putting things, building things, and using outreach and policy components that can support and enhance the active transportation culture in the town in a logical kind of way. And it also provides a good framework for when you're applying for grants and things from other governments to obtain funding so that the town's not building everything. There's lots of grants available for active transportation these days. And so we want to have something in place that shows those government agencies that Smith Falls is serious and we want to use your money wisely and here's what we're going to do with it. So that's what it allows you to do. And there's a couple of different components to the plan. There's the infrastructure infrastructure component of the plan that has a prioritized project list and costs it out and sets it up as an implementation plan whereby every year there's certain projects that get done in a logical kind of way. There's the policy component, which is supporting policy that we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's things like for your new development, for maintenance, that kind of thing. And then there's the outreach component, which is more on the supporting side with education, getting partnerships with businesses, and some of those pieces that really help in the community to bring to life the active culture. So the goal of the plan, and this builds off of the purpose, is really the first thing is engaging in the community and to learn from the staff and stakeholders and interest groups and your advisory committees and those type, and all of these different areas, learning from everybody the local context. We can bring to it, as WSP, we've done lots of active transportation plans and we love active transportation. We know the best practices and we understand how to develop the plan, but obviously that local context, we're looking for you to make sure that we're capturing what Smiths Falls needs the best and what is going to work for your community. So that's one of the key goals, is really engaging and getting information back. Developing a connected and accessible network that's going to be prioritized so that you have a list of prioritized projects, that we're not just willy-nilly building things throughout the town, but it's actually connected and has some logic to it that we can build on the culture. And adopting supportive policies and outreach side of it. So this is the piece that supports it. You know, you build it, they will come, but you need to also tell people that it exists. So it's that type of side of thing, and these are the goals. Project objectives, an overview of the process, just to give you a bit of a layout as to what it is that we're doing and up to. So step number one is really the background existing conditions review. We gather up all the planning documents that you have, the neighboring communities have, like the counties and that side of thing, and take an inventory of what the existing and proposed active transportation infrastructure is so far, and what existing policies exist to date. Step number two is the network development. And this is, so the blue text you see, I should have highlighted, the blue text that you see are points of contact for engagement or consultation. So the network development, we take that existing information that we've gathered, we identify where the network gaps are, but we also want to hear from you about where those network gaps are. We can identify some of them, but we want to hear from everybody else too. We did an online survey, which you all would have received the link for. We'll talk a little bit about what some of those results are in a second. We develop, concurrently with developing the network, there's a complete streets policy that goes side by side to take into consideration when we're developing the network itself, and identify route selection criteria. So how are we developing what that ultimate cycling route is going to look like, and where do we want to have sidewalks and that piece of it. This is where we're at right now. This is the step we're in right now. Step three, we move into, after we get information from the community and our reviews and all that about where we want to think we should have a network, where we think we should have sidewalks. We develop the project list. We set up what kind of facility it might be. Is it a sidewalk? Is it a multi-use path? Is it a paved shoulder? Is it a segregated facility? All that sort of thing. We prioritize it based on which ones we think should be built first, with input from the community on that side as well, from this phase that we're doing right now. That information will get presented to council closer to the end of this month, and then we'll bring that forward to a public open house in October. Following that, when we have the network implementation ready, the plan itself gets prepared, where cost estimates are looked at in more detail. How much would each of these projects take? We look at what the funding strategies might be. We look at what the strategic initiatives or outreach pieces are and policy components, write up a report and present that to council so that you can adopt it and start moving forward with the plan. So the public survey that you saw the link for, we ended up with 244 responses. And these are just some of the highlights. Just wanted to highlight a few things that we saw as part of the survey. 70%. So when we asked people if they identify, if they, as a non-motorized, if they use non-motorized ways of travel, 70% said that they do as a pedestrian. 20% said that they would be a cyclist. So obviously there's some work that we could do to up the number of people that think that they're cycling, they're a cyclist. And a lot of that has to do with this comfort level. So of the pedestrian folks, the 70% that said that they're pedestrians, 37% said that they feel comfortable walking on the existing roads and sidewalk infrastructure. So that leaves a bit of room to improve. The other piece is for cycling. Only 10% felt safe and comfortable in the cycling facilities that exist today. And over 40% had indicated that they feel the most comfortable when they're in a physically separated facility, which is a pretty high percentage. The other thing is that 65% of folks said that they're using active transportation to get fit for health reasons, for fitness, for recreation. So we really, that active transportation, that using active transportation modes is a way of life, as a culture that we can use in the community. It's a perfect community to use active modes and to get around by bike and by walking. And so while 42% is pretty good, we want to try and increase that. And particularly this 11%, like if people are working in the community, we want to try and get them into active transportation modes. Helps promote the healthy lifestyle and also helps with the reduction of greenhouse gases that are part of the policy planning documents. So top barriers was really about the lack of sidewalks or trails and the condition that exists today, or that they don't feel safe biking on the existing facilities. The other one, not convenient weather. There's not much we can, not much we can do about the weather, what people think about that. The other one that was interesting to us is 36%. I mean, obviously you're not biking if you don't own a bike. So 36% no bike ownership, but that's a pretty high percent that don't own a bike. So that's something that, there's some bike share kind of options and other ways we could look at to try and, mitigate or compensate for some of those kinds of things within the policy or the outreach programs. These were some of the areas, and I'm not really going to go too much into these, but these are the locations in town where it was said that new facilities would be desired. Schools and parks, the waterfront and that side of things they're areas that we considered as key destinations, as well with the trail. Odslice Road came up a fair amount, and it also came up in our, and the commercial area, actually, the stores along Lombard. Both of these came up as part of the committee meeting that we just had as well. And then the target for, when you are investing in active transportation in the plan, where do you want to see that money going? Improving maintenance on existing facilities was number one. And number two being build more paved trails or multi-use paths. So kind of fits right into, really the infrastructure component of it. We're going to talk a bit about the network development, so I wanted to go into this a little bit more in detail, but not too much detail that I talk all the time. So first thing we do is we look at existing conditions. We identify what the key destinations are, we identify what the existing facilities are, and we identify any previous proposed routes from the planning documents. We take that, we look at the gaps and the selection criteria, how we think the network should be set up from what we've heard, from what staff has told us, from what we know as our knowledge base. And then we set up what the actual route is with a proposed route on a map. Then we do field investigations. These are done both through desktop, the luxury of technology in Streets View. We look at that, but we also go out into the field because Streets View doesn't show you everything. And we want to make sure that the routes and the projects that we're proposing are possible to implement. So if we are saying that we want to build a new sidewalk down a certain road, and it means that we're taking out a huge row of trees, or there's a big utility corridor there and it's going to cost a whole bunch of money, and it's never going to get built, or it's not going to be possible, obviously we want to take that into consideration. We don't want to put that as the route. We'll look at a parallel route or something else. So that's done through those field investigations where we're really validating what we're suggesting makes the most sense. And then we confirm the network and select facilities. So we look at those routes, we say, yes, those are the ones we want. We identify the type of project. So using the tools that exist through the Ontario government and design guidelines, we say based on the volume of the road, the traffic speed of the road, the type of cyclist, like where we're going, all those kinds of things, what this facility type should be. It's going to be a paved shoulder. It's going to be a multi-use pathway. It's going to be a segregated facility or an on-road facility. So that's where we end up selecting what the facilities are after we've developed what the network looks like. So we right now are in this network development phase. So these big highlights, these we're going to talk about in a little minute, a little bit further. But basically, when we're looking at how do we want to set up the network within the town, we looked at direct connections, linkages to the local key destinations. So we were thinking about these dots that you see on this map are key destinations. The red dots are schools, the greenish, bluish dots are parks, the commercial areas like with Lombard and stuff. Sorry, Lombard down here. That was too far up. So looking at these kinds of areas, we also want to make sure that we're connecting. We're not dropping people off at the edge of town with nowhere to go. So we want to make sure that we are connecting to proposed routes that the Lanark County, the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville are proposing, but also the proposed routes and trails that exist and any missing links. We want to take a look and see about missing links in the waterfront, like any or upgrades with the waterfront trail, the Cataraqui Trail, Rideau and Trans-Canada Trail. The other thing that we look at is where are people today and where are people suggesting people bike today, because there's lots of people that have already gone to the effort of proposing, you know, nice cycling routes through town and that side of things. So we look at those and say, okay, those make some good sense and provide a good connection, and we just have to add this little link and all of a sudden we can join a whole bunch of loops. And then key barriers, so busy roads and crossings. For two reasons. One, obviously, we don't want to get to a busy road and or a barrier of some sort, the water and that kind of thing, and not be able to cross. But we also don't want to put all of our money into one crossing. Say we build a pedestrian crossing, cycling crossing, and that's going to be our budget for the next 5 years, and we can build nothing else. Does it make more sense if we can be on a parallel route or somewhere else so that we're making sure we're spreading the money for the most efficient way of using our funding that we have? Network development prioritization. This is the next step of what it is, because obviously with the implementation plan, we can't build everything at one time. So here I'd be interested when we get to the discussion on the maps, just hearing if anybody has any thoughts about, you know, where their priorities lie. The nice scenic route versus conveniently and direct. What your thoughts are about upgrading existing facilities versus new facilities, filling in the gaps. Is it more important to fill in the gaps because there's already something existing on a road, or is it better to build what you have right now up to a higher standard and not worry as much about the gaps? So that kind of priority, I'd be very interested to hear what your thoughts are there. Easy to implement projects versus more difficult. You know, you could build 3 projects, but they're not going to necessarily attract as many cyclists. But there's a really hard one where you have Parks Canada approval or other kinds of things, or it's more expensive, but it's a really key link in the community. So if you have any thoughts about those. And then the key destinations, and we'll talk about these. We've identified some on a map, but if you have others that you think we should be connecting to, we wanted to get a bit of feedback on that. So possible recommendations. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're going to get to the interactive stage here in a second, but possible recommendations for policy development. We're not really at this stage yet. This is more part of the implementation, but just to give you an idea of some of the things based on the review of the existing policy that we had already looked at. These are some of the things that we would, you know, that could be potential recommendations. One is age-friendly communities and equity. So this is looking at having pedestrian facilities with hardened surfaces, making sure that they are AODA compliant, such as the width for passing wheelchairs or turning wheelchairs, that side of things. Within the official plan, we might suggest developing a map of equity areas. This would be where some of the priority implementation of the projects might fit into it. New developments, there's 2 areas really with policy on this side. One is in the site plan development orientation to facilitate, like, so if where the building sits on the site, making sure that, you know, if it's a commercial development, not having a road right in front, making sure that there's nice access from the active transportation piece with a good space for bike parking and that component, and then pushing maybe the parking a little bit further. People can walk to the nicer area in front, that kind of thing, but on the orientation on the site itself. And then as part of the process itself, updating the site plan reviews to incorporate recommendations of the active transportation plan. So this is where if we've suggested a road is going to be a cycling facility, making sure that we're accommodating that through the site plan approval process, the space for it, but also maybe the developer can build it so that it's to the standards and design standards that we've established as part of the plan. Updating, so there's an update right now happening for the zoning bylaws. And so right now in the zoning bylaw, there's identified minimum parking requirements for different kinds of land uses. So a recommendation to include minimum bike parking requirements as well could be a policy recommendation that we would make. From a bylaw perspective, the Highway Traffic Act doesn't allow bikes on sidewalks, but as we're developing a network and we're trying to promote that culture of active transportation, we can propose as a policy recommendation having within the existing bylaws sidewalk cycling permitted for a certain age and lower. Parents kind of bike on the road beside, but the younger child, so that the parents are comfortable, the child's comfortable, safety on the sidewalk. They, kids that are learning how to bike don't necessarily signal the best in that side of things. Speaking as someone who biked her daughter to school for the first day of school today, I was a little bit, she's forgotten things over the summer. Maintenance policies, we have minimum maintenance standards, but maybe there's some areas where we want to have higher ones, or we want to prioritize a certain network for winter maintenance, like from a cycling side of things. So this is another one of those policy recommendations. And then outreach. We have outreach initiatives, and that, and this is really just the education side. So things like family bike days, where we have bike rodeos and there's some teaching of cycling, teaching of safety movements, that side of things. Maybe some little competitions, little like obstacle courses, things like that, get people out, sponsored by businesses. Partnerships for organized events, using the business community and those sides to sponsor certain events, things like valet parking at a festival, something like that. Active school plans, walking school buses, getting kids thinking about using active modes to get to school right from the beginning and capturing them at the younger age. And then like the other one I have here, we have a few listed here. These are just a handful. There's lots of things that we would recommend as we get further in and see what would work best for the community, but developing like wayfinding strategies. So one of the things that people are often hesitant to go in on an active mode is that they're concerned that they're going to get lost, or they're going to have to go out of their way a whole bunch of kilometers, and all of a sudden they're walking an extra 5 kilometers that they weren't expecting. Wayfinding strategies are a little more than just that arrow that says downtown this way. It's downtown this way. It takes you 10 minutes to walk there, and if you walk there, you're going to burn X number of calories. So it gives you that little bit of, oh, and on the way, why don't you check out this spot, this spot, and this spot. It has a bit of information on it, so people feel comfortable and confident when they're moving around by active modes. So what we're going to do, I just wanted to, and maybe what I'm going to do, because we ran out of time last time, but basically, I'll come back to that in 1 second, but basically this is the overall schedule for what we're looking at with our plan. Right now, we're looking at going to the first council presentation in September. It would be near the end of this month. Public open house, I mentioned, in October, with the final presentation in November. And then the overall plan, the end result, is going to be maps of what the recommended pedestrian and cycling networks are going to look like, where with a phased list of what the projects would be that are costed, and then implementation by a set number of years. And then the recommended supportive policies and outreach pieces. So I have not left us a huge amount of time, but we've got 15 minutes. And like I said, we'll circulate through Vanessa. Would it be through Vanessa? Vanessa, would we circulate through you? The maps? You can let us know. But what we'll do is I'm going to get Nikki to share with you some maps. And I'm thinking maybe what we'll do is we'll just skip ahead. So we've got some key destinations. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to let Nikki share her screen. And Chair, through you, what we would like to do is if people have comments, so we have 3 different maps. The first one is existing conditions. So the pink lines are where the existing sidewalks exist. The dots are the existing key destinations we've identified. So parks, schools, the community amenities such as libraries or recreation facilities and that kind of thing. So I don't want to spend too much time on this one because obviously Vanessa and the staff have a really good understanding of what exists there today. And I think it's best if we use our time for the proposed ones. And so I think if we could just move on, yeah, exactly. And maybe what we'll do is we'll start with the cycling one this time. Yeah. So this one here shows what we're proposing as the cycling network. So the blue line is the Beckwith, the existing Beckwith phase 1 renewal that was carried out. The green line is phase 2 that will be carried out. And then the orangish highlights are the candidate cycling routes. And so if anybody, Chair, through you, maybe if you can sort of orchestrate, if anybody would like to put up their hand and give comments about if we've missed a certain route, if there's a certain route that you think is a high priority, that one needs to be done first. If there's a certain facility that you think is, too narrow or something already, any comments like that is what we're looking for. Chair, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I guess maybe I'll start. One route I'd like to see if they could go ahead and get it finished up would be the Riverdale down through Lower Reach Park and over through the old slides and then back up around on Queen Street, just as a nice connecting link around the town. Then, so that's my thinking for a place to start.
And are you thinking like widen and paved facility? And like right now it's very narrow and like kind of stone dust. Are you thinking, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, hard surface or whatever they call
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Great.
And then on Queen Street, I think the street's wide enough. And Vanessa's mentioned that we could possibly like paint a cycling lane on one side of Queen Street to make for safer.
And are you thinking east of Hershey?
Well,
or through the whole
up through the town, more or less, over the old cross old slides to the lights, and then be west, I guess, on.
Okay.
That's all I have. Move on to the next. Jay, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ken. And actually, I'll have my say at the council table. But just to throw my two, Riverdale is plenty wide, and it's very low traffic, and so that is a great route. But the other route is actually the trail in Lower Reach, and the town had plans to, and we had actually gotten money to pave that up to Broadview for the first phase. But I think Parks Canada put an ixnay on that. But that is another active transportation, especially for walking. It is stone dust right now, and so it's an opportunity. We need to talk Parks Canada, but they have paved trails all over Ottawa beside their canal, and we need to work on them on that. But the connection between Lower Reach and Queen Street is vital, and it's not a very safe place to be. I walk it every week, and it's an opportunity to connect two sides of the river. Opportunity for people on the other side, like on the Queen Street side, to come over and enjoy Lower Reach Park in a safe way. So I think you probably heard that numerous times in the survey.
We did hear about that. So Old Slides Road, we have proposed, so the purple highlight you see here is where we're proposing a sidewalk. Doesn't mean that it's both sides of the road. It means it could be both sides, it could be one side. And the X's, those red X's that you're seeing are where pedestrian crossovers would be, PXOs would be recommended as projects. Because sometimes you can, save some of the funding. Maybe it doesn't make sense to put sidewalks all the way on both sides. It's cheaper to put a pedestrian crossover in a couple of locations than build the whole sidewalk out on both sides. So we had looked at this as a potential location, and whether it's here between the parks or further up by the museum or something like that, open to if anybody has any suggestions about it, but really it's not, the exact location isn't so much required as part of the planning document. It is a living document, and where it happens on the road can obviously be sort of fine-tuned when it comes time to implement. But these were just to give you a bit of an idea of what some of these notations are, purple and red and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to have my chance later, but anyway, on Lombard Street, we did actually, there is a brand new sidewalk there.
Both sides.
I think it's just hidden. Oh, south, you mean south? Where Nikki has her
was that Abertafiera?
Abertafiera.
Yeah.
Has brand new sidewalk.
On both sides.
However, yeah. And then there is a sort of a route, because I take it, is when you go down Ferreira and then you connect up to Herald, and then it takes you out to the, towards the mall. And that's a nice route too. And it's fairly walkable. The one sidewalk on Ferreira, when you turn off Lombard, is just a concrete slab, and it's in bad condition. But that's something for our new director of Public Works can look after next year. We'll talk about that later. That's it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Ken, did you have anything?
No, not at this point. I think it's well covered. I'd like to see what's the part of the survey though. I was looking at the survey and it was a lot to do with bikes, and again a bit of pedestrian walking. But what was the ages like? Like you got some of the data percentages. What was there any representation from the young to the old, like in the survey? Do we have any idea who really responded to the survey?
So the demo. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
sorry,
Nikki. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, after having looked at the survey, the demographic was definitely in the mid 30 plus range. Like for instance, when you saw that first slide, we talked about what people were using active transportation for. Biking to and from schools was very low percentage, below 10%, given that the demographic reached out to an older age range. So yeah, you're looking at 40 plus essentially in terms of people who primarily filled out this survey.
Okay.
We can provide that breakdown. When we circulate the maps, we can certainly provide that breakdown for you. We have the breakdown of the age.
Okay.
Was there anybody else had any questions?
Ben? It's Irv.
Go ahead.
I think you've outlined the biking routes very well. And I'm retired and I bike all around town and I walk also. I guess the only place that I'd be concerned biking would be Lombard Street. Okay. Anywhere else in town that you bike, it's, quiet roads, basically. You can go along without a bike route and it's just fine. But Lombard Street is very busy. It's not that wide. People are in a hurry to get to work or to wherever they're going, down to Walmart. It's a dangerous area right there. That's the only place that I'd really be concerned about biking. I'd be less concerned about walking because you can always get off the road, but for biking, it's a different story. So I have a concern there. I see you've got a trail going across just where the Lockmaster's tap house is. Well, no, not right there.
Further.
Where the lock station is,
Yeah.
and it crosses over into Centennial Park. That goes across a Parks Canada. It's really a pier for boats. So some boats tie up there.
Yeah.
I bike across there. When I go out, I bike across there many times a week. But people are crossing walking also. So and it's quite narrow actually.
Yeah.
And you've got bollards on one side. If boats are tied there, they got ropes across, or could have ropes across. And it comes down to the fact that we don't have a bridge there. So if we had a bridge, that would be no problem because we'd all take the bridge. But it is a bit of an issue there. Now, everybody uses it because that's the only way you can walk or bike across that way. But it is a bit of an issue.
You got that right, Irv.
That's right. I agree.
And that's the only thing, those are the only two things that jump to mind, really. But the trails look good, the connecting trails, the parks, and I'll walk down at Lower Reach on the gravel path or bike on it. I've never had a problem there. We're a small town. Everybody's courteous with everybody else, whether you're on a bike or whether you're walking. People are friendly. Good morning, great day, whatever. So never had a problem through the park. If it was paved in some way, that would certainly make it quicker. But I don't see it as a huge issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, what is the concern too is also on those swing bridges on Abbott and also at Old Slice. What could be done there to help that situation for bike lanes especially, because you can walk, it's okay to walk across, but the biking is probably a real difficulty as well.
I'm not sure anything can really be done about it. Having worked for Parks Canada in the past, I know engineering looked at the Abbott Street Bridge to see if it was possible to put kind of a louvered deck to one side.
Oh, yeah.
But they really felt that it was going to throw the balance of the bridge off, and they were not recommending it at all.
Oh.
I'm assuming Old Slice would be the same way.
I think so.
So you've got the sidewalk on the one side, and that's basically the way it's going to stay. I think. I mean, you could approach Parks Canada again to see what they have to say, but I think that's what they're going to come back with.
It'd be something to kind of look into and see what technology is out there for change in today's standards. I would think.
To the chair.
And go ahead.
I also feel Elmsley again is a connection. We need to get some continuity from our Beckwith Street new sidewalk or cycling facilities, and so doing that north-south connection through Elmsley, from your Queen Street connection through Elmsley, and being able to get that connection through to the north end of town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the other one we haven't talked too much about is our largest employer being Tweed. I really feel that we really need to put some emphasis on getting that Hershey Drive connection from the Tweed campus through to the parks and to the housing, so that members of staff could take bikes and ride their bike to work or even walk.
Hmm.
Okay. So Chairman, just cognizant of the time that we've been given, it's 22 right now. I will I want to thank you for your time. And I know that there are other things. If there's any other comments or questions, happy to take them now. Or also, as I mentioned, we'll circulate the maps and I will circulate the breakdown of the demographics that replied to the survey as well, and the presentation. We can circulate the presentation information as well. And get extra comments following, over the next course of the next week, if that suits.
So through the chair, can I make a comment? So what
Yes.
what Ken's going to do is she's going to provide these maps to me. I'll circulate them out to you. By the end of next week, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to prioritize what you feel would be the number 1, number 2, number 3 priority connections where we feel that there's some dangerous scenarios that need to be addressed, and help us with forecasting to making these awesome connections, and where we need to improve on some of our sidewalks.
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
is it possible for us to get the maps in a larger size so that we can really take a look at them, like a full page instead of just a part of a page?
They are on an 8. Are they 11 by 17, Nikki, the format?
I believe
send
so.
them- yeah, they are in an 11 by 17 format right now. If you wanted to print them.
Okay, I couldn't print 11 by 17 anyways, but I just printed off the presentation that you did, and just a small map on the side, and that's really not big enough, I think.
Oh, it's the maps that you're seeing. So it's the one that Nikki was just showing you
Okay.
that we will circulate.
Perfect.
It was just an example in the presentation. The
Okay.
3 maps that Nikki's been marking up on the screen is what will be circulated to you.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep,
The
no
one
problem.
that's there now?
So this is one. The one here is the cycling routes,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
there'll also be the sidewalk one here that's a full page, and then the existing condition one that's a
Yeah.
full page as well, if there's any of the key destinations you'd like to highlight.
Vanessa, is that something we could, you could print off and we could pick up from you?
I have the large plotter here. If you really want me to expand on these and make them larger, definitely I can have that capability and you can pick them up.
1117 is probably better than what we, even than what we could print off ourselves. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question on the public meeting. It's supposed to be in October. Is that, how will that be presented? Is that going to be on, like, in person, or we have to do it through Zoom for a public meeting?
I'm guessing probably
Not
have Zoom, I guess, at this point.
Through you, Chair, can I can speak to a little bit of what we've been doing on some of the other projects.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have been doing it mostly through Zoom. In some cases, we've had a hybrid. If people don't have access to the internet or aren't comfortable with looking at the information on the screen, they can go to a community facility that's manned by staff. But we do kind of just, it's in October. October feels like it's super close, but in the world of COVID right now, we have no idea what's going to happen. Like I said, send my daughter off to school today. No idea what the next 2 weeks is going to hold. And so I think
Right.
at the, when it comes time to do the notifications for the open house, at that point, we'll be looking at what the provincial recommendations are from public health and making the decision at that point.
Super.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
You go ahead.
Council decided the other night that we're going to be continuing committee meetings in Zoom. So I would until late November at the earliest. So I would suspect it would be Zoom. The other question I had was I understand. I think this meeting's been streamed online publicly.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if this presentation can be posted on the website as part of the council meeting, so people can look at it. It was a great presentation, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If that's all we have right now with you, appreciate all your comments and your presentation. And we'll move on then to our rest of our meeting then. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks. Okay.
Is already a 40-kilometer zone.
Yeah.
And Mary is an area where the kids are basically not necessary. We have a crossing guard down at McGill, which is 1 block further south. So maybe some more awareness with the schools indicating to get the kids to actually go down to the crossing guard would be great. And then the ability then, the question at hand then is, do you feel that the area would warrant placing a recommendation to council for a community safe zone?
Well, I myself would think that'd be a good way to go, make it a community safe zone. And if we could talk to the school about using McGill Street as a crossing opposed to Mary, seeing that's where the crossing guard is. And Rick?
I could certainly, we can assist with the education and have some conversations with the school with regards to directing people to cross at McGill Street with the crossing guard. By all means, if you have a lot of foot traffic from the schools, that's where they should be crossing Chambers Street. We can help facilitate that public education portion of this addressing this concern.
Okay, appreciate that, Rick. Thanks.
Through the chair, I was talking to Aaron Tompkins, our community officer, and he was indicating we would probably look at the safe zone limits, looking from Elmsley to Running Avenue, because we have a lot of the kids coming through from that quadrant north of the school, and feel that would be the best location, and that we could go a block north on Mary Street, basically up to Main, and incorporate that through to Elgin. So it would be Chambers Street, that stretch and the two blocks on either side of Chambers on Mary to be designated as a community safe zone.
And what about McGill? Was it already, if we're going to try and get the kids crossing at McGill, should McGill Street be the same?
Include McGill as well, those two blocks of McGill on
Yes.
either side of Chambers.
Yes.
Right.
Herb?
Vanessa, I'm just wondering, as a driver, what does a community safe zone mean for me? Like, is there a more of a speed regulation there? Does it go down to 30K or like what? We're already at 40K on Chambers. So as a driver, what does it really mean?
So basically what it means is that you pay attention to the speed. And if you do over the speed limit, your fine is doubled.
Yep. Okay.
And if we're all in agreement on that through the chair, would you like make a recommendation or a motion for council for support?
I'll make a motion that for council support on that.
I'll second it.
Ken seconds it. All in favor?
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Yeah. Thanks.
Through the chair, Vanessa, we had a community safe zone before with St. Francis School, right? On Queen Street?
Yes.
And now obviously that's taken away.
Correct.
But what was the history behind that in respect to the fines and so forth? Do we have any idea how that really worked?
Rick, can you help me out there?
I'd have to go back and see what type of enforcement we had there. I mean, one of the helpful items they had at that location was the flashing lights at the crossing.
That's right.
As well, which were activated during the school crossing hours. So I mean, it was a sort of a public attention grabbing type of thing. Of all our community safety zones, it wasn't for a busy street. It wasn't a problematic area as Brockville Street was, or some of the other locations. Okay. So it wasn't a big enforcement issue. But I'd have to go back and look at numbers to see what exactly the history was.
Okay. Excuse me, another question on that. Rick, you made a good point, but the flashing lights, is this part of that will be part of the recommendation of council? That would be that similar kind of setup?
It's up to you guys. What do you think? Do you think that would be more poignant that we include a flashing light in that area? Would we recommend that?
I would think that would be a great help, because I noticed I believe that, like, when I was going down on Queen Street, as soon as I seen that thing start flashing, I knew, you got to slow down and follow the speed limit, right? It kind of was a good pre-warning.
Yeah. But again, there's a lot more traffic on Elmsley Street than there would be on Chambers or Mary or McGill. So
yeah, but if you looked at that survey of the on Chambers Street, there was a lot of people speeding between 40 and 50 kilometers an hour. If you look at all the traffic counts in there and the speed limits they were doing, did you see that?
Yeah.
Like, there seemed to be a lot of people between not following that 40 or less. There's a fair amount that's still going up to 50 kilometers an hour, between 40 and 50, and maybe some higher than that too.
Through the chair, which is the typical speed without all streets of Smiths Falls is 50 kilometers. So we've already taken it upon ourselves to provide a lower speed limit for concerns for speeding within that area. Mm-hmm. So the direction has been given to people who are traveling. It's just them to abide by what's being prescribed on the roadway. There's lots of signage. There are lots of 40 kilometers an hour signs posted along Chambers Street. So I think what we could do is we could make a recommendation related to requesting that that council consider a community safe zone in this area, and that we monitor the area. And if we don't see any change, I can put leads out next year. And if I don't see any change, or if we don't see any change, and Rick can take a look at the histories of people being charged for speeding within that area, that maybe we will go to that next step in putting a flashing light.
Okay. Sounds good. That's great.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Okay. Want to touch? Go. We have much time. A little bit of time here for the.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay.
So
okay, go ahead.
okay. So through the chair, Chambers Street, we have some concerned citizens within the area for the concern for speeding, which is the ultimate concern for the area from Empress basically going through to the tracks.
Yeah.
The request of the neighborhood that was submitted was that there possibly be an installation of a 3-way stop sign at the corner of Chambers and Empress. The consideration of the installation of speed humps and updating the 40-kilometer signage, being that most of the blocks have signage, and just ensuring what's there is maintained, and that there is a begin sign missing at the eastbound Chambers Street near the corner of Elmsley, which can be rectified by Public Works. So these suggestions, they can't be taken lightly, and there's a process that we go through to review, and as I had indicated to you, the requirements for a speed sign. There's a warrant that has to be, there's certain guidelines and things that have to be taken into effect prior to placement of a stop sign. It's not something that we just put out just for the sake of an ask. So again, we'll have to do some research and have to do some review on the amount of vehicles and such within the area. And then also, I did print off, we did do counts in July, and the 85th percentile is kind of our designing concern or alert of what's happening. So according to the results of the speed check that I did that week, was we have an 85th percentile of 49 kilometers per hour. So yes, we are over the 40, but we're lower than 50. So there is lots of postage of signage within the area. So I think, again, and I know the police have been putting out the portable speed sign, because that has been an ongoing messaging to alert motorists of their speed and to slow down. So I think in response to the residents on Chambers, our first step is to address the signage concerns. I will do an assessment for the block under the warrants for a stop sign. And the other thing is a potential, what we could do is what I've seen in other communities is that we actually paint a 40 kilometer an hour on the roadway. So when you're coming up out of the subway, then it's right there. Yeah. You're not looking at signage, you're looking at the roadway and you will see it. So I'm talking with Public Works right now to see if that's a possibility to achieve. So in the interim, Rick, if the police could carry on doing as they are with putting out the mobile unit and providing police presence to assist in keeping the speeds down, and then we can move forward with the rest of what the requests are, and we can report back at the next meeting.
Okay.
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 Thanks,
well.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're out of time. And we'll call for an adjournment of this meeting, and we'll get back to you when we can have a next meeting and finish off what we did done today.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.